Hello everyone, welcome you all to AGSI's Academy. Dear friends, this is part 2 of video under Political Science Optional Western Political Thought PSIR for UPSC Mains 2022. Just to remind us about the continuation of the previous part 1, that was about Leviathan, and we were discussing various pros and cons about that and how significant was that regarding the strategies and planning and writing the answer according to the exam's point of view in that sense. Dear friends, in this particular part 2, we are likely to discuss about Thomas Hobbes, his political ideas and political thoughts in the second continuation of Leviathan. And here we will go for the introductory part. As we know, Thomas Hobbes is considered widely as one of the very significant political philosopher of the 17th century, and it was really a big and mega work what he had done of his time. It was something which was in a sense unparalleled. The point is how the question can be framed under this. Let's try to frame and then try to find the answer correspondingly. From UPSC's point of view, can be asked like, highlight the political thoughts of Thomas Hobbes with suitable justifications and how justified was at that time. Let's try to find the answer of this. And as I said, first what we'll do, we'll start with the introduction. And that introduction would be about Thomas Hobbes in brief, from 1588 to 1679. He died. Needless to add, he was one of the biggest political philosopher in the history of his time, and whose masterwork Leviathan can run parallel significantly when we talk about the major works of other political thinkers like Aristotle, Locke, Rawls, Kant, Rousseau in different orders, and of course Plato. How can we forget that? Thomas Hobbes has been very famous for his elaborate writing and focusing of his time. He was the one who was completely aware about what's happening inside and outside the country. Dear friends, let me remind you one more thing in this answer. Here I am giving you discussions in detail. What you have to do is, you have to, once you listen this, you can find out the suitable parts for your relevant parts for the writing answers. Dear friends, come back to the answer part. So he was so much aggrieved about the prevailing situations at that point of time. He decided as to do something which could really be a favorable condition for the public at large and the society as a whole. Dear friends, so decidedly when he worked hard on this and tried to find various researches, when he explored, he came to the conclusion about that there should be a mechanism on the basis of which the normalcy and development and peace and progress can be established. It was a time when he saw the complete devastation around. He was really appalled and in very broken condition from inside. He wanted to find a solution and to give to and present to the society during that time. That was so essential. And then he talked about that the two parties should be there, one be in a commanding position, others will be in a submissive position, who can submit to the commanding position. And that commanding position will function as a guardian, as a ruler, as a head of the state, and the party second part who is submitting will be submitting entire rights to that second party known as ruler of the state. And later it was known as social contract theory. And the method of justifying political arrangements and principles should be based on agreement and will be suitably rational, logical, comprehensive for the two parties. That was the perception he wanted to establish this idea. And then, since he had seen the states, countries around in a very dilapidated condition, he wanted to remove all these hurdles and the hurdles which were in the form of a civil war. That status he wanted to get rid of, and then he went to the extent of suggesting that the ruler should have not only commanding position, the ruler should have, of course, or at least optimized power, and that power could be to any extent which can control, which can take care, and which can probably be in a position to have overwhelming condition. So he talked about an authority of an absolute, unlimited and undivided sovereign power. He wanted to confirm if the ruler would be in a commanding position, if the ruler will be in a righteous position, if the ruler will be in a position on the basis of which can thwart any problems which are arising in the society because of different nefarious designs of the deceivers, crooks, and then antisocial elements, and those elements which try to find the solution of their grievances in their own ways and means at the cost of the state and at the cost of the public. This is what he wanted to avoid. And at that point of time, there was hardly any government which was in a commanding position to quell all these problems, those were going on, and he never wanted to see repeated these problems. So decidedly, a kind of methodological innovation, you can say, was in the form of a profound constructive impact and in the form of a political philosophy with the substantive ideas and conclusions that could really serve the significance, the needs, the problems can be avoided. He wanted that kind of solution for the public at large and the society and to the nation. Dear friends, In this connection, he laid the foundation of a situation on the basis of which there will be no war against all, and there will be no situation where the public will fight against each other, and a conducive environment will be there on the basis of which the nation can move on and can progress in the right perspective. Dear friends, in this situation, Thomas Hobbes decided to develop a kind of philosophy that could be really beneficial and that could be really handful not only for some sections of the society but for everybody of the society and the nation as a whole. Dear friends, this is the part of introduction I am telling you. As I said at the very outset, that it will be in elaborative form, but you have to pick up the points according to your choices. What choices you want to have, you can act accordingly and use lines for your own useful purposes. Dear friends, since at that point of time there was hardly any parallel political philosopher who could have suggested ways and means for which the society was the victim, but at that situation, Thomas Hobbes was somebody who had come out with his own political philosophy, and as you know, when something comes new, that always remains open for positive developments as well as negative developments. So every aspect has two aspects, every coin has two angles, positive and negative. So the society's work is to pick up firstly positive, how that positive aspects could be useful really for the society at large and the country. And Thomas Hobbes, he wanted also that his theory should have the reflection of espousing divine command theory, a sort of which could have virtues, ethics, morality, but more than that, should have a commanding incarnation that could be useful for country's development, peace and progress, and the true doctrine of the laws of nature that should really take care of these pathetic conditions prevailing across at that point of time. Dear friends, it's not that when he started his own assumptions, he was taken so easily. You know, to start something new in the world, people always find hurdles. But then, Thomas Hobbes, like any brave man, was determined to move on come what may, to bring out some changes and tangible changes that could be really, truly reflection of the society and useful. Dear friends, Thomas Hobbes is less known with his moral philosophy than understanding his own pragmatism. His very dominant view about the conditions prevailing, Thomas Hobbes espoused psychological egoism as the foundation, you can say, about moral ethics. Though these particular perceptions were rejected generally, it seems so, and but then as he was determined to take the ideas to put into practical reality, so much so that that can have long lasting impact, and then the society should be really logical, fully functional. It's not only that Leviathan he wrote a lot of things during his entire lifetime. To name a few, some important writers what Thomas Hobbes wrote: in various versions of his political philosophy can be included in that. The English Leviathan, published in 1651, was one of them. Then philosophical rudiments concerning government and society, again in 1651. The elements of law, natural and politics, the questions concerning liberty, necessity, and chance. And dear friends, in due course of time, all of Hobbes' major writings are collected or assembled, you can say, which was edited by Sir William Molesworth in the form of the English works of Thomas Hobbes. It is said it was in the form of 11 volumes and continued the work in London from 1839 to 1845. Dear friends, Thomas Hobbes kept on writing and writing to bring changes in the society, on the basis of which he was disturbed and feeling pathetic. And you can easily find reflections in Leviathan in part 1 of Thomas Hobbes under WPT, which he talked about. And in that sense, there could be many fine overviews of Hobbes' normative philosophy, which find reflections in one or other form in his entire discussions and areas which has kept on nurturing. Dear friends, at a time English Civil War, such an era, which was the period of political disintegration, and a country which is passing through a political disintegration, now you can imagine what could be the status, what could be the reality, how the human beings, how the citizens will survive, how the citizens will feel secure. Don't we feel they could be undergoing under tremendous psychological pressure? What will happen in coming days, in coming months, in coming years? Where will lie their future secured? What will they do to secure their future? And not only they and families, their generations. These were something which making Thomas Hobbes really very, very disturbed. And he wanted to get it rectified through absolute political authority. Dear friends, Thomas Hobbes wanted to bring some rational principles, and he wanted to construct a civil polity that would really be helpful and would not be subject to destruction from within, but quite helpful for the entire country. Needless to add, he as a person went through very hard time under devastating situations, and he viewed that the burdens of even the most oppressive government must be better than undercoat, scarce, sensible in respect of the miseries and horrible calamities that can accompany a civil war. Dear friends, what he wanted to say, which I quoted just now, is nothing but the fact is that he saw chaos is everywhere, anarchy is everywhere, and how that can be stopped. What could be the ways and means? This is nothing like in the name of government is nothing there. As if there is no guardian of the society, of the state, of the nation. Nobody is accountable to other person. Nothing is something which could be rational, logical, which could be useful. Then what is important? Important part is how best that can have reflections where the public can have self-relief. And dear friends, that's possible only through when there is an installment of a strong government under the aegis what Thomas Hobbes said, with the help of Commonwealth. As you know, we have discussed this in Leviathan. Dear friends, because virtually every government would be much better than no government at all in any country, in any society. And he decidedly, as we all saw, supported absolute monarchy, and who could be useful for the restoration of peace and development in the country. He supported. It's a different story. His support to absolute monarchy was not well taken by every quarter of the society, and not even now is not being seen in favorable terms across the world. But then it was his views what he tried to do so. Dear friends, what is said, when the era is without government, when the era is without any logical perception of dispensation, and the people are at chaos, continued instability is there, and people are not refraining from sorts of actions that really undermine others' interest. But the government is required now who could be really helpful in establishing the right of the state. How that can be done? He says, when he talked about through Commonwealth, let us remind what he talked about. That you submit entire rights to this particular entity, what might be called later and called government, or the ruler, or the head of the state, who will take care of the entire problems of the society, of the state, of the country. Because, dear friends, he saw nobody is there, everybody is in chaos, undermining others. So it's better to have a good guardian who can handle, who can take control of the house, of the society, of the nation, of the country, so that everybody can feel secure at least. Forget about like will be beneficial from others. And according to him, as we know, the biggest problem for anybody, for human being, is fear, is scarce. Because of fear, people cannot do anything. People want peace, a good environment, conducive environment, and that really ensures development, peace, and progress. In the absence of that, nothing is possible, and was the same case with Thomas Hobbes, who understood these situations in his early age. Dear friends, Hobbes aimed to demonstrate a kind of reciprocal relationship between the two parties of Commonwealth in the form of peace and political obedience. I hope things are clear as of now, which we discussed in this particular video of Western political thought under political science optional for IS Mains of 22 under the aegis of AGS IS Academy, in the form of a great masterpiece of Leviathan in part 1 and now part 2, which we are discussing. Dear friends, this was one of the important introductory parts of Thomas Hobbes. Now let us switch to the next part of it, and that's very important part which we've been discussing is about the state of nature. What it refers to? It refers to how the life is there, how the state of nature is there, how a life could be a condition without government, how the state will look like when there is a war against war among themselves, between themselves. And Thomas Hobbes was very particular in this connection. He wanted to bring life to a normal condition, to a normal position. He understood life is not possible without a specific guardian, without a specific government, without a specific ruler who could be ardent, particular, strong enough to resort to any action which could be beneficial in the interest of the state. And dear friends, let's imagine when there is chaos everywhere and they are one after another, where everybody decides his or her own future oneself and tries to become judge himself, jury himself, executioner himself, and disputes who will solve it, how things will be done. In the state of nature, the state was very horrible, according to Thomas Hobbes. Dear friends, how the state would be appropriate baseline against anarchy and chaos, unless the judge is there who can justifiably take just decisions and political arrangements can be done accordingly. It's a state of really something chaotic in which there is no agency which could really recognize an authority that could be really useful for the beneficial of the society and that can address, that can solve the disputes, and an enforcement agent as a symbol of effective power to enforce decisions for the benefits of the society. Dear friends, it was a horrible situation which he painted, was not acceptable, was something very much unimaginative. And if we talk about like the near descendant of Thomas Hobbes like John Locke, who in his second treatise of the government, if you talk about the state was indeed to be preferred to subjection to any absolute government, any absolute arbitrary power is better than no power, is better than chaotic situations. Dear friends, laws are needed to run the government, and if it requires to solve the problem for the betterment, coercive methodologies too can be practiced, but for all the right reasons. Dear friends, in the absence of this, there will be impossible of the basic security upon which a sociable civilized life and comfortable life depends, on the basis of which a baseline of the society really goes on. But if that will not happen, the problem will be there and solution will not be seen in place. Dear friends, in the absence of a better government, nothing will really flourish, nothing will really work, and the entire country will be the country of chaos and anarchy. This reflection really finds truly when Thomas Hobbes talks about and paints the picture of the state. There will be no place for the right person, no navigation, no commodities of import will be imported by different means. People will keep on starving, finding the chaotic situations. No instruments of moving and removing things as an hurdle which are coming on the way, dear friends, and no education, no knowledge, no universities functioning properly in the absence of proper government, what Thomas Hobbes talks about of his time. Dear friends, this thinker is very, very important from the perspective of WPT of PCS Mains for writing in exams or even for other exams as well. And the life of man in the state of nature will be like nothing but brutish, nasty, poor, solitary, and short. And if that is the state of nature, now imagine people definitely have strong reasons to avoid it, and that can be only done with the help of mutually agreed solutions arrived at, so that everybody can take a self relief, so that everybody can feel good, relaxed, or secure. For so long, a man is in the condition of a state of turmoil or a condition of war. The private appetite will keep on prevailing in the form of evil over the goods, and the good sense definitely would not prevail, and that will create headache for everybody, and that is in nobody's interest. Dear friends, what is significant is today, and we can have this, dear friends, in this sense what Thomas Hobbes talks about, like unless there is sense of security in the state, it's not at all possible that any peace and progress can be done, and humanity cannot work. The point is, he says, neither industry will work, nor education will work, nor anything can be done. And unless there is political stability in the state, nothing can be really expected. And then the life of man will be at disarray or in a very jeopardy. So this state of nature he wants to avoid. And he says, so long a man is in the condition of this state, the possibility of finding any solution, the possibility of progressing, the possibility of going to the next level is really almost impossible, and cannot be decidedly find out as to how it can be done unless there is a right government at the center. Dear friends, Thomas Hobbes might be criticized for what he is talking about the state of nature. He might be criticized for unduly pessimistic, extremely painting raw pictures of the state and constructing it from a number of individually plausible, empirical, and normative assumptions in a different perspective which cannot be useful. He might be, or others might be, criticizing him, but the point is, criticizing a person for his innovative ideas is very easy than to render the solution what actually the society is facing. All of us are prone to criticize others. All of us always try to find out some bad points from others, what others have done. But do we really try to pick up good points, what actually is there in the right innovation of somebody? So Thomas Hobbes can be cited as an example who tried to at least come out with a masterpiece and having strong ideas which could be useful for the society. Dear friends, He assumes that people are sufficiently similar in their mental and physical attributes. Thomas Hobbes says, might be there are many persons in the society who are better, but the condition if is not good, they are also the ultimate sufferers. And Thomas Hobbes assumes that people generally want to avoid death. Nobody likes death. Nobody likes misery. And everyone desires to preserve their own lives in his own capacity in the right perspective. Most people desire for good things, for comfort, for nice life, and completely life secured. But the point is, this all is not possible unless a sufficient, adequate, specific, ardent ruler is in the state who can really take care of all these things. But how that's possible? If there is a culmination of civil war everywhere, then how things will be as people want? Thomas Hobbes simply want the state should be in a position of better condition, and people can have affection, benevolence, love with each other, can find peace and tranquility, and they can have a better future. And the kingdom of darkness, dear friends, I had discussed in the previous part 1 of this previous video, and it was the same dark phases which the state was undergoing, and which Thomas Hobbes had really discussed, which needs to be avoided. And the kingdom of dark really cannot continue for long, as it hampers everything of the state, individual, citizens, society, and everything. And concerned with the situations and very gray areas of the society, neither judgments can be done nor good things can be taken out, and public's own personal preferences cannot be really taken to the logical conclusion. Having desires, fancy ideas, and to continue in the heart is very, very normal things of the society, but it's really difficult to translate into reality in the absence of a right government at the helm of affairs. This is what Thomas Hobbes talks about. Dear friends, might be believing in religious beliefs, might be believing in content of lives, might be believing in different sorts of thoughts and desires, but then without the continuation of a good governance, a good lifeline, nothing can really be taken into consideration, dear friends. Therefore, dear friends, if the state of affair is really not desirable, things will not work, what Thomas Hobbes talks about. And Thomas Hobbes puts a right to all things, and the principle of practical rationality should be prevailing across the society, across the state, and that people should adopt. And people, since being rational, they love to be in peace, in quiet, and then they need a government who could be rational, so that necessary means to support their means can be handled in the right perspective. Dear friends, it was all about like a state of nature of what I discussed right now, in the sense which is useful and quite beneficial from the perspective of this particular question which we just now at the very outset discussed. And so we would now move to the next part, and that is a state of war. A state of war in the state of nature is something very much, we can say, very undesirable, which nobody wants that should be there, dear friends. In this particular situation, Thomas Hobbes talks about the plausible descriptive normative assumptions and the potentially fraught with divisive struggle that is really dangerous and harmful for the society. When the society is at large in a state of war, then how the development can take place. The right of each to all things invites serious conflict, and then serious conflict really creates more competitions of and for resources, and then with this competitive uh, wrong environments, which is not healthy one, can be really suicidal for anybody who wants to move on for the right perspective. Dear friends, people will quite naturally fear about the things which are not in their favor, and then when they see attack is there, invasion is there, anarchy is there, chaos is there, no civilized person can think of peace and progress, and the society will really collapse. This state of war inside the state of nature is something which really prevents the right person to think about the positive angles of life, the positive parts of life. And Thomas Hobbes is no exception to this. Everybody will really feel appalled by seeing these kind of situations, because conflict will be further fueled by the disagreements in even religious views, moral judgments, and then about properties, about resources. That is something which are not, if accounted for the right regions, things will go out of hand and would lead to chaos and anarchy. Dear friends, I hope like what we discussed just now, as of now, it would be clear. And then if you feel some suggestions needed to further in this particular uh, suggestion, that suggestion can be really appreciated for further better informations. But we try our level best to procure the optimized useful informations for you so that it can be helpful. Dear friends, continuing this of state of nature, state of war, Thomas Hobbes, what he talks about, he imagines a state of nature in which each person is free to decide for himself, and he imagines a state where everybody can really work, can see the situation, can behave accordingly, can find the state which could be beneficial, which could be useful, and then wherein everybody can uh, think the best, enforce her or his views wherever he or she can do in a direction which is desirable for him or her to do so. In this condition, where there is no common authority from Thomas Hobbes' point of view to resolve any issue, to confront any unwanted things, and which could be really serious, disputed in nature if is there prevailing anywhere, then how that can be handled. Handling these kind of scenarios will be only possible with the help of commonwealth, what he has discussed, not with the help of kingdom of darkness. Dear friends, we can easily imagine with Hobbes the state of nature. Really, if this state keeps on going, is a state of war, and then it's really worse, even like uh, with the imagination how best it can be when the situation is all against all. So, dear friends, continuing further about this, the claim about like what Thomas Hobbes talks about, the representative example of a realist in international relations. Let's take an example, be that as the time of like Thomas Hobbes of that era, or even now, which is going on across the world. Something talks about is only feasible when there is sense of peace and urgency of development and stability in that country, within and without the state or the country. Then only the country, the state of nature can be useful, and the country can move on. Dear friends, what like Thomas Hobbes came across and saw, he these things only he has tried to discuss, he has tried to paint. And the savage people in many places anywhere definitely cannot be looked into in the right perspective. uh, Dear friends, Thomas Hobbes asserts and talks about the state of nature will be easily recognized by those whose formerly peaceful states have collapsed into a different perspective of civil war. He says that civil war needs to be avoided. People needs to be in place of peace and tranquility, and that's only possible when the area will be under a right government, a right ardent ruler. In the absence of this will be really difficult. Dear friends, assumptions and counter assumptions aside, Hobbes' philosophy really gave license for the peace and development for those who really feel that there should be a chance on the basis of which the public can have of relief, and the judgments can deliver uh, accordingly. The judges can work accordingly, judgments can be delivered accordingly. Probably not will be possible if the situation continues like this, and then the bonds of affection, friendship, Keith and Keen clan membership, shared religious belief, it will keep on decreasing. The accuracy of any pure individualistic model of the nature of the state uh, cannot be really worked out unless there is sense of good governance. Then only individualism will also flourish, people will flourish, state will flourish, and the development of any kind of situations will keep on going. The point is, Hobbes' analysis of conflict in the state of nature is really something that speaks volumes, and that may turn out to be very much good if that some steps accordingly can be taken into considerations. Dear friends, confidence, competition, glory seeking, and all positive things can be really nurtured and harnessed. That's only possible with the help of the right governance. In the absence of any turmoil, in the absence of any havoc and anarchy, then only the good governance can prevail, and that's possible with the help of, you can say, through commonwealth, what like he has talked about. Still, commentators seeking to answer the questions how precisely Hobbes' state of nature can be investigated and understood is something which is a different point of introspection, and the degree to which Hobbes imaginations of the society, of the state, or a condition of interaction among isolated individuals, or anything which is being painted by Thomas Hobbes is something why he's talking about is also point of question. The point is, unless something is going on substantive, unless something is very much disastrous, Thomas Hobbes could not have painted this picture that speaks volumes. Thomas Hobbes decidedly, if he's talking all this and bringing to the nature, bringing to the fore, is something which is very much essential and individual needs to take into account. Plus, also is the significant part is another question, and that is important, is as to how long these state of affairs keep on going on unless the right decision is taken. But the point is, who will take the right decision? Who will be at the helm of affairs if this state of affairs keep on going? The right decision, right position will be only taken with the help of coordinated action, or a right government is at the helm of affairs. Otherwise, the life of the people will be prone to disaster when we are left to interact according to our own chaosness. That chaos should be stopped, and that's only when our mindset will be free from anarchy, then any individual can behave properly and situations can be handled accordingly. Dear friends, perhaps with people who wish to act for their own best long term interest cannot be procured, cannot be handled, and they can be only short sighted, and so they can indulge their current interest without properly considering the effects, purposes, motives, desires. And then the best part of the discussion is, Thomas Hobbes says, the behavior of any individual in the long term interest can be decidedly possible only with the help of the right government, and unless that happens, there would be the system failure, there would be the failure of rationality, and alternatively, it may be that the people in the state of nature can be completely in deep trouble of irrationality and may be trapped in a situation that makes it individually very much in chaotic situation. Dear friends, what is decidedly under this state of nature, what he suggests Thomas Hobbes is individual rationality for each to act in a way that is suboptimal for all needs to find out, and then something should be done, and then should be taken out from business dilemma of game theory. Or again, it may be that the Thomas Hobbes state of nature should be peaceful, and for the presence of persons who want justice, development, progress is only possible when the situation can be in the right perspective. Dear friends, one like Hobbes talks about the state of nature and that is quite in miserable condition, then one can imagine the state of war will be something and is something which compels everybody not to really pursue what is desirable for everybody. Let's take an example in the current world of today's globalized world. Forget about like Thomas Hobbes of that era. Let's try to connect that era to the present era of Syria. What happened to Syria? What happened? The country which was so much having a lot of natural resources, a lot of things were there few years back, and then sooner or later the country went into civil war, and then external powers penetrated, and then by planting different sources and different mechanisms. That happens only when when there is lack of good governance, when there is turmoil inside, then only external forces take advantage of that. We all know this, and precisely on that account Thomas Hobbes was quite fearful what will happen if the miserable condition or civil war will keep on going, and then the situation will warrant in a way which could really invite the right government. But in the absence of an ardent and strong government, how the situation can be controlled, how the state of war can be eliminated, how the betterment for the public can be really possible in the society, in the country, for the nation, that will be really difficult. Dear friends, Hobbes in his argument tries to paint a picture of a state of nature which should be happily comfortable, and human nature which full of resources so that they can escape these miserable conditions. But Hobbes also argues that each of us being a rational animal or human being, चूँकि human being is based on rationality and is amalgamation of logical faculty, generally and always avoids war of all against all is amicable, all is inimical to the satisfaction of the interest. We all know that like the tendency of human being is to have peace, and that is good, and therefore is very important in a way that could lead to a society which is beneficial. But from Hobbes' point of view, humans will recognize imperatives as they are peace seekers and they want development. They would definitely avoid a situation which is going on, and that warrants not to have these kind of situations which could really create problems. Dear friends, when they can do, when they can bring, when there will be a government of choices at the helm of affairs, the society automatically will be in the right perspective of development, peace, and progress. Hobbes calls these practical imperatives law of nature. Why? Because according to the laws, there is the need of the systematic order of anything according to the nature. Here, in the sense of a state of nature, the good governance is only solution which could be really fruitful from all accounts to the public, to the society, and across sections of the state. Dear friends, what is essential from that perspective is Thomas Hobbes tries to forbid those vices that are really dangerous. Cruelty and ingratitude should be avoided. Public need development, public need progress, public need understanding of the society which could be useful. And though there are plethora of criticisms of Thomas Hobbes, who they feel what Thomas Hobbes is talking about may be right, but like there are some indications of wrongs as well, and in particular position they are not favorable about when they paint state of nature about human beings as they are all are at war against all. There is lawlessness, chaos and anarchy. That could be, but still what like critics talk about, there still could be the chances for doing something good, for course corrections that can change these bad situations into the good realities, and that could be useful and fruitful for the development and peace of the society. Dear friends, if we see deeply about like Hobbes ideas, Thomas Hobbes, what he tries to paint is, it's not his imaginative ideas, but what actually is going on across his surroundings. This is what he tries to paint. And he says, how long this will keep on going on unless some substantive thoughts can be taken, unless something can be done, it's not possible to develop right ideas. Also, his being a line of criticism can be seen in this connection about Thomas Hobbes. People are not favorable to that governance which could have really assembled, amassed all ideas, would have taken all powers into his hand, and that can really create a big problem for the public who want peace and development, free life, free development, and their own life to spend the way they want to spend right across the world. Then if given by the nature, going by the nature of the human beings in the society, it's always seen and is understood that the nature of the public is to have free play, free say, free understanding, and human beings want always to develop their own mindset, so that according to that they can behave and act, not to be governed, not to be forcefully governed, not to be imposed something from other quarters. That could be dangerous for a human being. Human being cannot get self relief, human being can be under pressure, human being can have fear psychosis, human being will pass through a kind of situation which are traumatic. These are the human natures which Thomas Hobbes tries to paint out. It should not be there, not only in his country, around, or even entire spectrum of many states, because he as a big thinker tries to paint a society which could be only fruitful, which could be only developmental, which could be divided of any kind of danger situations, and definitely there should not be any kind of war situation, war like, where nobody can have their own thoughts that can flourish, that can progress, and that can be demanding. And dear friends, what Thomas Hobbes really is talking about, that there are a lot of other things, but in the society what is important is people want to have their fair share in every field, without any obstacles, without any disturbances, without any chaos in their life. What they want is how best the government should be there. And so because the government is very much pathetic at that time, the governance is very much lacking, and for those who want to criticize, they have their own reasons to criticize. But the point is, only criticizing somebody is not essential. What is essential is to give an alternative situations on the basis of which public can really do better and can handle and can move on accordingly. And then that is possible only with a strong government at the helm of affairs. In the absence of that, that will not be possible. Thomas Hobbes paints about the vices, about the problems, about the situations that really are compounding and then escalating around, which is not essentially good for the society, for the betterment. And it's very difficult for human natures to go with these kind of imperatives which are, and which can create, which can take them at the crossroads for no reasons of them. It's desirable not to have these kind of situations, rather they want peace, development and happily life, so that not only for the family, should be good for also the generations that also should be suitable and very much good, so that people who are coming in the next generations or even thereafter should not face tremendous problems what at right now these people are facing. But on the top of that, the next generation question comes later. The first question comes, how best even the current generation can survive, how best the current generation can really feel and have the resources to move on, to try to find the solutions, to do whatever they want. In the absence of that, it will be really problematic not to feel safe, not to feel secure. And Thomas Hobbes is very much disturbed at the state of affairs, what's going on, what he decides that these kind of disturbances should be avoided. So dear friends, let's have conclusion of this what exactly today we talked about in part 2 of Thomas Hobbes, and then we have many other points which we'll discuss in part 3 of this Thomas Hobbes series under Western political thought. So what, let's conclusively to conclude we can have with this idea, the main gist of today's discussion under this video is of part 2 can be said that Thomas Hobbes pictures those state of affairs which are going on, which need to be handled, that is different part. But state of affairs is very very in bad shape, and people are not feeling comfortable, people are feeling that they are at a state of war. There is a lack of governance, there is no strong governance, there is no strong government, there is a lack of ardent ruler who could take care and really handle the entire state of affairs of the state, country, nation. And that could be only in the interest of the society, what Thomas Hobbes talks about, and then what he came across, what he saw, what he is discussing. So it's quite natural for anybody, if somebody comes across something, will paint the same picture what is in the mind or what is being seen. Dear friends, with this I conclude, and then it's really high time what we discussed could be useful for exams point of view. If it enlightened your entire thought and you got something substantive from this video, do share, do like, do subscribe, and really thanks for watching this video, and welcome you all to AGS IS Academy at the end. Thank you very much.